Queen Lysra of the Zelithar Empire had never imagined her life would hinge on a single decision. But here she stood, on the cold marble balcony of the royal palace, staring at the human ambassador below, her heart weighed down by duty and dread. The Zelithar Empire had been at war with the human colonies for decades, battles that left entire star systems in ashes. Yet the humans remained defiant, clever, and unnervingly resilient. The War Council had convened for days, and each strategy, each maneuver ended the same way, with heavy losses and no victory in sight. It was a stalemate that drained her empire's resources and tested the loyalty of her subjects, until a radical proposal arrived from her chief advisor, Queen Lysra. "There is one way to end this war without surrendering our honor," he said, his voice steady but sharp: "a union. A marriage with their king's heir, Ambassador Kale, could secure peace for decades, perhaps forever." Lysra's stomach twisted at the thought. Marrying a human meant setting aside centuries of cultural enmity, yet the alternatives, continued slaughter, rebellion, starvation, were far worse. She had inherited an empire that demanded respect and strength. And if this marriage preserved it, then she would endure. She agreed, not out of love, but necessity, her fingers brushing the delicate crystal railing as if it could absorb her fear. The humans arrived at the Zelithar Palace under the banner of truce, their ships gleaming against the dying light of the twin suns. Kale, the young heir, stepped forward with a calm confidence that unsettled her. He was nothing like the arrogant general she had imagined, his eyes sharp, curious, and strangely gentle. For the first time, Lysra wondered if perhaps the humans were not the monsters her empire had painted them to be. The ceremony was austere but beautiful, a blend of Zelithar tradition and human custom. Lysra recited the ancient vows, her voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty within. Kale's reply was soft, sincere, and unyielding. As their hands touched, a ripple of energy, faint but unmistakable, passed between them, a power both alien and human, a power she did not yet understand. Later that night, alone in the imperial suite, Lysra stared at the human insignia etched on Kale's sleeve, wondering what she had agreed to. "This will stop the war," she whispered to herself. "It must no matter the cost." The stars outside glittered coldly, indifferent to the choice that would shape the fate of billions. Unknown to her, the humans had secrets that went far beyond diplomacy, secrets that could turn the balance of power in ways no empire had dared imagine. And so, the queen who had married to save her people slept uneasily, unaware that the peace she sought might reveal truths about the humans that no ruler had lived to tell. The Zelithar Empire had chosen restraint, but the universe had chosen revelation. And soon, Lysra would learn why no empire dared fight them. The morning sun rose over the Zelithar Palace, casting golden streaks across the polished floors. Queen Lysra moved through the corridors like a ghost, her mind heavy with uncertainty. Kale had requested a private meeting, and though her advisors protested, she felt compelled to go. There was something in his demeanor that stirred both caution and curiosity within her. They met in the council chamber, a room of towering crystal pillars and intricate star maps. Kale studied the charts without a word, his eyes scanning every system, every fleet position, as if reading the universe itself. "You see the lines of battle," he said softly, "but you do not see the patterns beneath them." Lysra frowned, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. "Patterns?" she asked. "You mean strategy?" Kale shook his head, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Not strategy, not as your generals understand it. Something deeper, something instinctive. The humans have a way of seeing outcomes before they arrive, of predicting consequences that seem impossible. It is why wars we are told we should lose, we survive." Lysra's pulse quickened, a cold knot of fear forming in her stomach. She had been raised to believe in the superiority of the Zelithar, in their intelligence, discipline, and power. Yet here was a human, not a warrior cloaked in steel, but a calm, calculating presence, speaking truths that challenged everything she knew. Days passed, and the humans' subtle superiority became apparent in small ways. Their ships navigated asteroid fields with uncanny precision. Their diplomats anticipated every move. Their soldiers adapted faster than any of the Zelithar could comprehend. Each display of competence carried with it an undercurrent of something Lysra could not name, a silent warning hidden beneath polite gestures and formal treaties. She began to notice it at court, how advisors stumbled when debating humans, how generals hesitated when confronted with their tactics. Even the air around Kale seemed to hum with unspoken authority. One evening, she confronted him quietly in the gardens. "You make it seem effortless," she said, voice low. "How do your people do it? How do they survive when empires fall around them?" Kale's gaze turned to the twin suns setting over the horizon, his expression unreadable. "Because we are not like other civilizations," he replied. "We learn from every failure, every defeat. Every empire that tries to crush us leaves a lesson behind, and we carry those lessons forward. We are not invincible, but we are patient, and patience can outlast even the greatest power." Lysra felt a shiver run down her spine, her own empire's arrogance laid bare before her eyes. She had married to stop the war, yet now she wondered if the humans were not only defending themselves, but silently teaching her, guiding her, warning her of truths that no Zelithar ruler had been ready to accept. Late at night, she walked the palace halls alone, thinking of the distant systems still embroiled in conflict, thinking of the billions of lives she was responsible for. Kale's words echoed in her mind, a soft, insistent refrain: "No empire dares fight us because no empire survives to tell the story." A sudden knock at her chamber door pulled her from her thoughts. A messenger bowed low, holding a data crystal. "Your Majesty, a fleet approaching from the outer rim, unauthorized. The humans have already intercepted their communications." Lysra's eyes narrowed, realizing with a mix of awe and fear that the humans' influence reached farther than she had imagined. As she looked out at the stars, she understood a truth that chilled her more than any battlefield. The war was not over, it had merely shifted, and her marriage, her alliance, was the first step in a revelation that would shake the foundations of her empire. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between stars, the humans waited, patient, prepared. Unstoppable in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. The Zelithar palace had grown quieter since the humans arrived, the usual hum of political debate replaced by uneasy whispers. Queen Lysra could feel the tension beneath every conversation. She began to notice it in subtle ways: the way Kale's advisors moved, the way human soldiers handled weapons, the way entire fleets seemed to respond to his thought, as if he were orchestrating them without speaking. Late one night, curiosity overcame caution, and Lysra followed Kale into the inner halls of the palace, halls she had never entered before. He did not notice her at first, absorbed in a glowing holographic map of distant systems, stars and fleets flickering in blue light. Then she saw it, a motion she could hardly believe. The map rearranged itself at his touch, yet it seemed to respond to his thoughts as well. Kale turned, eyes meeting hers, and for a moment she felt exposed. "You should not be here," he said softly, yet there was no anger in his voice, only a calm observation. "Why do you hide it?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "What is this power your people possess that no empire dares confront?" He paused, studying her carefully, as if weighing what she was capable of understanding. "It is not power in the way your empire thinks of power," he said. "It is adaptation, anticipation, and connection. We learn from everything: failure, success, tragedy, even the lives of our enemies. The universe has rules, but humans find the exceptions, and in doing so, we survive where others perish." Lysra's mind raced, trying to comprehend. "Survive?" she asked. "You mean you've already faced every kind of war, every kind of empire, and you still endure?" Kale nodded, stepping closer. "Not every battle, not every empire, but enough that those who have fought us learn the same lesson. Humans do not die quietly, humans do not forget, and humans do not surrender easily." He gestured to the map, fleets blinking like fireflies across the void. "Look at these systems, Queen Lysra, these planets, these colonies. They were considered lost, abandoned by those who thought victory was inevitable. Yet our people remained, we adapted, we rebuilt, and those who underestimated us never recovered." Lysra's fingers brushed the edge of the holographic map, feeling an electric hum in the air. "You are immortal," she whispered, fear and awe mixing in her chest. Kale's lips curved in a faint smile. "Not immortal, but resilient. In every generation we learn, we pass knowledge forward. Empires fall, leaders die, but humanity persists. It is why no empire dares fight us outright. The cost is too great, the lesson too enduring." For the first time, Lysra understood the gravity of what she had married into. This was no mere truce, no simple alliance. This was a merging of her empire with a force that had endured catastrophes beyond imagination. A civilization that survived by turning every defeat into a weapon, every betrayal into a strategy. Days later, she was summoned to the observation deck, where a fleet of human ships glided past the planet, their formation flawless, unyielding, yet almost serene. Kale stood beside her, watching quietly. "You see their discipline," he said. "But it is not discipline alone, it is foresight. It is understanding patterns beyond what we can explain. Even your best generals cannot predict our moves, because we do not move randomly, we move with history in our minds." Lysera swallowed hard, the enormity of it sinking in. Her people's arrogance, their reliance on strength and numbers, suddenly seemed fragile, fleeting. "And what of the peace we promised?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale's eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. "Peace is only possible when one side understands the consequences of defiance. Your empire will not suffer unless it chooses to, but test us, underestimate us, and the lesson will be unforgettable." That night, Lysera could not sleep, haunted by visions of human fleets, human resilience, human patience. She realized that the war she sought to end had already been decided in ways she could not have imagined. The humans were not merely surviving. They were shaping the universe quietly, inexorably, with a strength no empire could ever openly challenge. And as she gazed out at the stars, a single thought struck her with chilling clarity: "I'm married to stop the war. Yet I fear I have only begun to witness the force that no empire survives to oppose." The palace grew colder as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the corridors. Queen Lysera could no longer ignore the feeling that she was being shown only fragments of a truth far larger than her understanding. Kale had begun to speak less in words and more in demonstration, each act leaving her with a mixture of awe and unease. One evening, Kale led her to a secluded chamber deep beneath the palace, a place no Zelithar had ever entered. The room was circular, lined with crystalline panels that pulsed with light, and at its center floated a device that defied every principle Lysera had ever learned. "This is the core of memory," Kale said softly, "a repository of everything humanity has endured, every war, every disaster, every betrayal. It is not just history, it is strategy, survival, foresight." Lysera's eyes widened as the panels shifted, displaying holographic representations of battles across centuries, worlds rising and falling, leaders dying, empires crumbling. You store it all," she whispered, unable to hide the awe in her voice. "Every failure, every mistake, every act of courage," Kale replied, "so that we do not repeat the same mistakes, so that we are always one step ahead, always prepared." She tried to grasp the implications, the enormity of it weighing down her mind. This is why no empire dares fight you," she realized aloud, "because you are never truly caught off guard, because even when we think we have an advantage, you have already seen it before it happens." Kale nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Exactly, Queen Lysera, to fight humanity is to fight every lesson of history itself. You can challenge our fleets, our soldiers, even our diplomats, but you cannot challenge our knowledge, our endurance, our preparation." Lysera felt a chill run through her, realizing the depth of her own empire's vulnerability. The Zelithar prided themselves on power and innovation. Yet here was a civilization that had turned memory itself into a weapon, a shield, a guide. The humans did not merely react. They anticipated, they adapted, they evolved with every threat. Kale moved closer, placing a hand on the core, and images of ancient wars flashed across the room. "Your empire is strong," he said, "but strength without understanding is fleeting. You fight battles as they come, we fight battles before they arrive. That is the difference between surviving and perishing." Lysera's mind raced, thinking of the fleets massing at the edges of her territory, the councils arguing over strategies that seemed so rigid now. The humans had mastered something she had never seen in the Zelithar: resilience made perfect, foresight made tangible, a force that no brute power could break. Then Kale's gaze locked on hers, his voice low but firm. "You married to stop a war, Lysera, but peace is more than the absence of conflict. Peace is understanding. It is recognition that some powers are not defeated by fleets or weapons, but by respect and caution. Every empire that ignored this lesson is gone, and every one that will challenge us in the future will meet the same fate." For the first time, Lysera felt the full weight of the humans' hidden edge, a revelation that dwarfed every battle she had witnessed. Every victory her empire had celebrated suddenly seemed fragile, fleeting, insignificant in the face of a force that turned history itself into armor. And as the core of memory pulsed with soft blue light, showing the tragedies and triumphs of 1 billion human lives, Lysera understood the truth she could never have imagined. The humans are unstoppable not because they are the strongest, but because they never allow weakness to exist twice. The realization left her both fearful and awed. For the first time, she wondered not if her empire could survive, but if it could endure without learning the lessons humans had mastered over millennia. The palace was silent that night, the twin moons casting silver light across the marble floors. Queen Lysera stood on the balcony once more, gazing at the human fleet that now orbited her world like an unspoken promise. The memory of the core, the lessons, the foresight, it all pressed against her mind, heavy, undeniable. Kale appeared beside her, quiet, steady, as if he had always been there. "Do you understand now?" he asked softly, the wind catching his cloak. "Do you see why no empire dares challenge humanity?" Lysera nodded, her throat tight. "I do," she whispered. "Not because you are stronger, not because you are faster, but because you endure, you survive where others fall, you adapt where others crumble, you turn every failure into advantage." Kale's eyes softened, almost tender. "And now you see, Queen Lysera, why our alliance is not mere convenience, but necessity. The peace you sought is fragile, but in understanding comes strength, in respect comes survival." Lysera turned her gaze to the stars, imagining the countless civilizations that had tried to defy humans and failed, the fleets and empires that vanished into history's shadows. She realized the full weight of her choice. The empire she married to save would never be the same, and yet it might endure not through strength alone, but through alliance, through learning, through adaptation. Days passed, and the Zelithar began to change, subtly at first, councils discussing strategy in ways they never had, fleets moving with renewed coordination, diplomats listening more than speaking. The humans' influence was quiet, almost imperceptible, yet it spread through every facet of her empire like a pulse, a rhythm of survival and foresight. Lysera found herself beside Kale in the war room one evening, watching as human advisors demonstrated tactics that seemed impossible. "Your people have so much to teach us," she said, her voice steady, "and we have much to learn." Kale inclined his head, a hint of a smile in his eyes. "That is how peace lasts, Queen Lysera, not through domination, but through understanding, not through fear, but through respect, not through war, but through knowledge." For the first time, Lysera felt a strange calm, a confidence born not of power alone, but of knowing that the humans' lessons were now part of her empire, that her people could endure, could adapt, could survive just as they had, just as they always would. And as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Lysera whispered into the night, "I married to stop a war, but I have learned why no empire dares fight them, because the humans are more than an army, more than a fleet. They are history itself, memory made flesh, a force that cannot be defeated, only understood, only respected." She took Kale's hand, and together they watched the stars, the silent fleets, the endless possibilities, knowing that the war had ended not with a battle, but with a choice, a marriage, and a revelation that would echo through the universe for generations. And so the Zelithar Empire endured, guided by lessons older than any war, tempered by wisdom stranger than any power, protected not by the strength of their weapons, but by the understanding of a force that no empire had dared defy. And in the quiet between stars, Lysera knew the truth. Peace is not absence of conflict, but survival with understanding, and humanity had mastered it perfectly.